You have more control over your career than what you think. What if I tell you that you can influence how you and your team are perceived in the company? That you can decide the projects that you want to work on and actually do them. And you can be part of the people who is deciding where the company is going, what is the strategy that is going to be created to achieve the goals that the company has. And you can decide actually how to build these solutions, how to build this strategy, and how to get there. There's this belief that only if you work very hard, you will be visible in companies. And if you're visible, then of course you will get different kind of benefits. You will have a salary raise, you will have a promotion. This can be true for some kind of companies, maybe smaller ones or even startups, but bigger companies actually operate very different. It is not about working harder, but working smarter and focusing in the things that really matter for the company and how you communicate those things. Only if you own your narrative about what are the things that you're doing and why they matter for the company, only by owning that, you will achieve to be visible and you will be able to actually be more strategic, to pick the projects you want to work on and to do the things that you believe are the best for the company to achieve their goals. To explain this, let me use an analogy. If a tree falls in a forest and nobody notices, did it really fall? How many times you have made great projects, deliver a lot of value to the company, but no one really cared or no one really noticed that you did this? Probably it is not that they didn't care, to be fair. It is more that they didn't know what you did and why it was important for the company. Imagine that you are part of this great team that is actually delivering a lot of value. You manage your time, you can control the things that you're doing, you know your craft, you know how to add value, and you are always invited when these nice strategic meetings about how the company is going to deliver value in the future, it's going to be created. But the reality is very different. Most probably, your team is swamped in tasks. Everyone is asking you, hey, what are you doing? When are you going to deliver what you promised to deliver? Most probably, those teams are more reactive than strategic. And probably your team is one of them. I have been there too. And let me tell you something. This is not your fault. Most probably, you are a very reliable employee, always responsive and hitting your deadlines. The thing is that you have been working super hard, but in the wrong things. Today, I want to share with you 3 things that you can start doing immediately that will change your corporate odds. Point number 1, the feedback loop. In companies, the teams are interconnected. They are dependent one to the other. And this means that when you need something, probably you cannot do everything by yourself. You have to go and ask for things to other teams to be able to deliver value and do the things that you have to do. And it goes the same in the other way. So if you are not asking these people how you are doing and how you can actually do better, you will never be able to improve the things that you are doing. If you are not asking people about what you can do better, you will never be able to improve and to grow. And your team will always be part of these reactive teams instead of the strategic ones that are the ones that bring the highest value for companies. Let me give you an example to illustrate this. Aviation is one of the safest ways of traveling, and it's because they have great processes in place to improve every time. They are having this feedback loop about different airlines, different pilots, different planes around the world to understand what failed and what they can do better. And this process of improvement, this feedback loop that they have in place, is what is allowing aviation to be one of the safest ways of traveling today. So this point is aimed to do exactly that. To check how you are doing, to ask people how you are doing, and be candid with yourself about those things that you can actually do better. This has massive benefits for your team because you can actually see the pain points your stakeholders have about your processes. It is not completely related to your work, how you're working and how you deliver, but it's more about that process that you have in place to help other people. And you will be able to recognize those things that you can do better. So the first part of this point is to actually implement a feedback loop if you don't have it. The second part is about how to work with it. And what you have to think is you need an automation process. You need to automate the feedback request on every specific thing that you are doing for other teams. And only like this, you will be able to see what you are really doing for every one of those items. The third thing that you have to do with this is to quantify. You have to assign a number to that feedback. And this is the normal feedback that exists on every feedback form. So rate 1 to 5 with stars, with emojis. If you can, give people the possibility to give you open feedback, like an open text option, so they can tell you exactly what they feel and maybe give you ideas about how to improve. Another thing that you can do is to use any of these productivity tools as Monday or Jira, where they have different add-ons or options to automate these processes. But if you don't have access to any of those tools, you can even use Google Forms to ask for this feedback. And the last thing that you need to take care of is to define what is going to be the process for you to review the feedback and implement the learnings about the feedback. And this is not something that you're going to do on the weekly basis probably, but maybe you want to have a monthly cadence to check this, or even a quarter cadence. And even if you can, that's something very clever to do, to have a metric that you're going to follow to know how good you're doing or if you have to improve. So something like a satisfaction rate or stakeholder satisfaction rate, something that you can actually implement, measure, and follow period to period, monthly, quarterly, or whatever you define. Point two, the communication loop. Look, great work is nothing if no one really knows that it happened. You have to own the narrative of the things that you are doing, because otherwise you will become completely invisible. The communication gains actually compound. So every time that you are shipping something new, that you're delivering value to the company, and that you make sure to communicate that value, that's going to compound. And each time that you're doing this, people is noticing what you're doing for the company. It unlocks support, resources, change the perception that other teams and stakeholders have about you, your team, and the work that you're doing. The best thing is that people will start noticing you and the things that you do for the company. Remember the analogy of the tree falling in the forest? The same happens to your work. If no one sees what you're doing, it becomes actually nothing. So what to do in here? There are three main things that you have to do. The first is defining the channel that you're going to use. So even if it's a Slack channel, an email, or a documentation that you have in a knowledge base. The idea is that you can post in here the things that you're doing and why they matter for the company. One thing to keep in mind in this process is that you want to make sure that the key stakeholders that you want to communicate these gains are in those channels. So let's say that you know your manager or your manager's manager is the person who needs to know about those things that you want to communicate. So you have to make sure that this person is there. If you're sending an email, you want to include these people in that email, because that's the end goal, that the key people is aware of the key initiatives that you are doing. The second thing that you want to do is to always quantify the impact. And this is, I would say, the most important thing that you have to do when you are communicating something inside a company, because you cannot just simply say, oh yeah, I have made this amount of tasks, I have made this amount of projects. That's good, and it shows commitment and capacity, and it shows that you're a competent employee, but it doesn't speak the same language as the executives are speaking or expecting the company to speak. So always quantify the impact. Always tell, okay, this is what I did and this is why it matters. This is what is going to change after these things that I have deployed, that I have shipped. And you will see that people will start noticing and understanding what those things that you're doing are and what they matter. And the last thing, it sounds silly, I could say, but it's to commit. If you cannot do this regularly, then it becomes nothing because people will forget. Again, in the company, there are many things happening at the same time. Having the attention of people is super complicated. Attention is scarce in these environments. So if you are not committed to do this regularly, to communicate your gains, don't expect to have great results. Only the commitment will help you to be there and to stand out in front of the people that you need to. Number 3, the transparency loop. So I want you to think about one time that you have requested something from a team and that you didn't really know if they were going to do it or when. How did it feel? Most probably it was frustration because you really needed something to be done and the team didn't communicate, oh yeah, we are going to do this by the end of this week or maybe by the end of the month or something like this. So it is very frustrating because you really need something that you don't know how it's going to be delivered or when, or even if they are going to work on it. And the same happens with your work. It is super important to always clarify and set clear expectations for your stakeholders to know what to expect, when, and how you're going to work and deliver the things that they are requesting to your team. Just by doing this, you show how much you care about the requests, the teams, and the stakeholders that are requesting your help. And we can visualize this very easy. What is better? You request something to a team and you know nothing. They ask a lot of questions in their forms and they don't tell you when they are going to deliver and what they are going to do. Or on the opposite side, you have a team that once you're doing a request, you already know that depending on the request that you're doing, you will have a deadline that maybe is going to be in a couple of days or maybe in a couple of weeks. Most probably, you would say that the best is the second one. And that's what you should be aiming to build with this specific transparency loop. So here, a couple of ideas about how you can implement it. The first thing that you want to do, of course, is to meet with your team and define what will be the SLAs, the service level agreement that you will have with your stakeholders. So this is a very simple process of understanding the different types of requests that you can get. Some of them will be more urgent than others. Some of them maybe you need to just jump and do them because maybe there are key processes depending on these specific requests. There are others that maybe you can take a couple of weeks to do it. So the first thing is to define what will be those types of requests and how you're going to support them, keeping in mind that some will be more important than others. It is important also as part of this item to define what will be the cadence your team is working on. And let me give you an example. So it's not the same that you have, for example, 1 week sprints. So all of the different requests that you're getting, you're going to work on them during 1 week, or maybe a 2 weeks sprint. That is the most common. I actually have this other video that you can check explaining how those different systems work. The third item in here is of course to communicate those SLAs, service level agreements, with your stakeholders. And actually the interesting thing is that you can use the communication loop in the channels that you have decided to communicate all the gains. You can use the same channels to communicate to people what to expect and where to expect their requests to be completed. And the last thing that you want to do is, of course, making these agreements visible for the stakeholders. Whether you have documentation in a knowledge base, or whether you have an email, or whether you are constantly communicating to people what to expect with this. But it's important for it to be visible because Stakeholders are busy doing a lot of things, and it's easy for them to not keep in their minds about how you work and what to expect. So as long as you're clear, set clear expectations about what you're doing and when to expect your support, it will be easier for them to know what to expect. It is very common that we kind of complained about how we are working, how the company is going, to not understanding what is the direction the company is actually heading, because we don't have enough visibility about how the decisions are made and how we can contribute to build that vision. What I have found is that in most of the cases, it comes down to just having a lot of things happening at the same time and not being able to articulate what your team is doing and how it is contributing to build that vision. If you make sure and work in building that narrative around the things that you're doing, it is very likely that you will be starting being included in the things that actually matter for the company. And maybe your aim is not actually to be part of those conversations, but it can give you the control over the things that you're doing because you already know how to add value to the company. So these three simple things that you can start doing today, feedback loop, communication loop, and transparency loop, are things that you can implement just in a couple of hours, probably, and that can give you exactly what you need to continue growing personally, professionally, and of course to grow your team. So I hope this is helpful for you. See you in the next one.